Hey everyone, it's Mel from Support Fibro. So I'm testing out a new software with screen sharing to see how well it works on video. So I decided to do a special unboxing for you. Now don't get overly excited, but this is an unboxing of the Diagnostic Solutions GI map. So we're going to do a stool collection unboxing. I know this is not your regular Birchbox. Within the box, you have the specimen collection tool with the glove, everything you need. You also have the paper tray collection kit. Now, when I first did this test in 2016, I was like, what? You want me to do what with this? Had a lot of anxiety because I'm not very coordinated and I didn't know how this was going to work out. So what I did was I looked up on the internet for tips and there were some really interesting tips, but I did come across someone that mentioned lifting the lid up, putting the saran wrap and plastic wrap across the toilet. That's where you catch the stool. So then you can collect samples from different areas of the stool and put that in the vial and then flip over the stool and then just toss everything out in the garbage outside. And I thought that was much easier than collecting things in paper. And I'm not sure why this is not universal. When I was doing research on other companies who provide stool tests, there was one company that provided the plastic wrap suggestion as a tip, so that was great. But if anyone out there has any more information or has other tips on how to do this better, please post comments and let us know, because it's good to share. I know these are hard topics sometimes to talk about, and sometimes it may gross people out, but a lot of us with fibromyalgia, we have gut issues, and these stool tests we may have to take regularly, so it would be good for us to learn what maybe best practices are that we aren't being told that would help lower our anxiety, because I know trying to figure this out it drops out my anxiety. So anything to try to make it easier. Now, this Diagnostic Solutions had to be ordered through my functional medicine physician. And at the time in 2016, it wasn't covered under insurance. I think now possibly my insurance may cover just a little bit, but there's a lot of haggling going on. So I was excited to hear from Brandy, our team member at Support Fibro and founder of Being Fibro Mom, that her GI test that she recently ordered with her doctor was completely covered from insurance. So I'm excited about that. So as technology is moving forward, it looks like insurance is making some strides to improve some of these tests. And I think we really need these tests because it gets a little bit more complicated, especially when everything else is showing up negative when it comes to regular conventional medicine tests. So these advanced testing is like really coming in handy. And I am looking at other companies, so there'll be other videos that will come up because I love biohacking, and if I can order tests on my own, that's awesome. So I'm looking at some other companies where I can order microbiome tests and analyze it to see if it's just as effective or what kind of things I can learn from it. But going back to the Diagnostic Solutions test, I wanted to kind of show you an overview of what the results were and like a sample report that they provide on their website, and then compare it to some of mine and go into some of the other bacteria for the GI mapping. So let me get the screen share going. And you can see one of the sample reports that they actually have on the website. And if you go to the Diagnostic Solutions website, they have a section for clinicians and patients so we can learn more. But this sample report is on both to look at. So this is the GI map kit. This is an updated version, so it's going to be a little bit different from what I had from 2016. We can see the breakdown for bacterial pathogens, parasitic, viral pathogens, H. pylori, and then other microbiota measurements, any additional overgrowth, potential autoimmune triggers, fungal yeast overgrowth in the gut. And so here we would show stuff like candida, any viruses that may come up, other worms and other inflammation markers. So it's a pretty comprehensive test and a good report that you might encourage your healthcare provider to order. I know functional medicine doctors and naturopathic doctors are ordering more tests like this, and there are various companies, and there's more and more companies coming out with different tests, and they're constantly improving what they test for and more advancing in technology. So I think it's a great aspect to this. And I just wanted to kind of take a moment to highlight these potential autoimmune triggers, because I found this to be really interesting when I first started studying the microbiome and after I got my own GI map test, was the correlation between these autoimmune triggers and certain diseases. I'm going to do another screen share from a Kindle Cloud Reader, and Brandy should be pretty happy about this. This is actually from Amy Meyer's cookbook, her autoimmune cookbook, where she talks about this. And it's the bacterial infections and understanding autoimmunity. Here's a list of the most common associations between bacterial infections and autoimmune conditions, the type of microbe, and the associated disorder. So you can see this breakdown of these autoimmune bacteria that show up in the GI map and what they're correlated with for a disease. Now, the interesting thing is, so these higher populations in the disease were showing commonalities in the gut bacteria for these autoimmune triggers. And, when they talk about this stuff, the question becomes, can you start reversing this autoimmune triggers in the gut and hopefully help with the symptoms of the disease? So this is very interesting stuff that's going on when it comes to studying the microbiome and how we can combat gut health and actually look at reversing some of the symptoms associated with the diseases. So I found that really fascinating. And this is my GI map from 2016. So I showed higher levels of elevation, inflammation in the gut. So I did have inflammation in the gut. I did have Citrobacter, which again was linked back to rheumatoid arthritis, and the Klebsiella was also present. So another link to rheumatoid arthritis. I did have higher levels of H. pylori. My mom actually had high levels of H. pylori, which was actually measurable in a conventional medicine test that she was given, and she was treated. But when I took that same test, I was negative. So it was interesting to see that this test picked it up that I was higher. So this was part of actually my gut health treatment that I worked on with the functional medicine doctor. And we also targeted these potential autoimmune triggers, which was important because again, the link to rheumatoid arthritis. And in 2013, my rheumatologist said I had something autoimmune going on, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Her hunch was rheumatoid arthritis. And she definitely told me to come back later when I had something more full-blown. So she gave me about 5 years. So I think rheumatoid arthritis had kept coming up as issues, and I know I had severe joint pain. But in 2016, my gut health was awful. I was completely tethered to a bathroom. It was terrible. So I knew I had to improve gut health. But a lot of tests that I was taking with the GI doctor were showing up negative. He kind of hinted at an indeterminate colitis diagnosis after the colonoscopy, but there wasn't really much of anything defined for me. And then also there wasn't really a way to get at understanding some of the other triggers that might be happening. And I do love some of these tests because I could actually see what was going on and then maybe have a more targeted treatment that way, which was pretty important for me, and especially when it came to some of these inflammation markers. So I thought all of this combined was really interesting for my own biohacking, and this is where I really started to biohack more of the fibromyalgia with my gut health. I looked at inflammation. You can tell that I have slightly elevated inflammation markers for the gut, but in my other tests, if you look back all the way from 2013, I actually had chronically elevated inflammation markers in other components of regular blood tests. And that was one thing that led me to more of understanding of inflammation. And I know we don't talk about inflammation a lot for fibromyalgia, but for me personally, it actually became a journey of looking at everything that I was diagnosed with and looking at any component within that of inflammation. And again, it's some people aren't affected by those chronic levels of inflammation that may be elevated, but I could have possibly been. And so that was a factor that I was considering. And again, doctors would see it rise, like inflammation markers I would get worse or higher levels, but then it would go back down. It would still stay elevated, but it would go back down. So I think the doctors thought that I was improving, but I had this like up and down cycle when it came to these inflammation markers. So not only in the gut, but I was testing the interleukin-6, SED rates, CRP, like other aspects in blood tests, and those things were still coming up slightly elevated. And I think that's one part of the biohacking aspect that I really looked at. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just thought this would be a fun way to share a special unboxing. So hopefully we'll do more of these and really get at the science. And really what I wanted to do is make sure that patients feel empowered. I know when they get these tests, it can be overwhelming, but please ask questions of your healthcare provider. Look at some of these websites for the companies that they order the tests to. They generally have a learning center. Diagnostic Solutions does have a learning center with various online webinars and people giving talks, so you can take the time to learn. And sometimes I know it's a lot of science information, but yeah, let it sort of sit in. There's different aspects you might take away from it, and I mean, I have fun with it. So hopefully we'll do more videos like this soon. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I will talk to you later. This is Mel from Support Fibro. Bye.